We were discussing symmetry and conservation theorems or conservation principles in physics. Actually, we have discussed in the introductory lecture of this chapter that a famous theorem by a famous mathematician, Noether, which states that every conservation principle corresponds to symmetry in nature. And in fact, in accordance with this theorem, all the conservation principles studied in physics definitely corresponds to some symmetry in our space or and time, you can say. Actually, in the previous lecture, which was actually the introductory lecture on symmetry and conservation principle, we have discussed in brief the various principle of conservation which is resulted due to symmetry in nature. But our present concern is only about the three conservation principles in classical mechanics. And those three conservation principles are conservation of linear momentum, angular momentum, and energy. So today, particularly, we will discuss these three conservation principles, and we will actually prove these conservation principles that how they are resulted from the symmetry in nature. And let us see this fact, that is the statement of Noether theorem, how explains these symmetry principle. You know, the symmetry of space and symmetry of time are known as symmetry properties of a system. Actually, the homogeneity of a space implies that Hamiltonian of the system remains invariant after an infinite simal translation, and due to this, actually conservation principle of linear momentum is resulted, and in similar manner isotropy of a space implies that Hamiltonian of the system remains invariant under infinite simal rotation, and due to this invariance of Hamiltonian, actually the conservation principle of angular momentum is resulted. In the similar manner, you will see that homogeneity of time implies that the Hamiltonian is not an explicit function of time. When you say Hamiltonian does not depend explicitly on time, what does it mean mathematically? It means the partial derivative of Hamiltonian is 0 with respect to the time, that is del h by del t is equal to 0. And this fact actually leads the conservation principle of energy. So these are the three conservation principles, that is conservation of linear momentum, conservation of angular momentum, and the conservation of energy, which we will study in today in detail because our concern in classical mechanics is about these three conservation principles. So let us first of all start to deal with the homogeneity of a space due to which conservation of linear momentum is caused. So let us consider a system of particles, and this system of particles is given an infinite simal translation, let us say epsilon. And due to this infinite simal translation, actually each particle is displaced by same amount. So you can see we consider a system of particles, and let us say this is position vector of an ith particle. This is an ith particle relative to some arbitrary origin, and after the translation given by us, this particle, that is ith particle, let us say is displaced to a new position where its position vector is Ri prime, and this is actually its translation, that is epsilon we have assumed is its translation. In fact, this is the new position of the particle, let us say I prime. When we translate the system by this amount epsilon, actually all the particles of this system get displaced by same amount. We have considered for calculation only ith particle. So let Ri equal to position vector of an ith particle relative to some or arbitrary origin, and Ri prime, this is position vector of the same particle after translation. Remember, this translation is very small, so it is called infinite Samuel translation. Now you can see from this figure that this Ri prime will be equal to what? This will be equal to Ri plus epsilon. From triangle of addition it is clear. Or we can say the change in position vector. When you say change in position vector, what does it mean? It means displacement of the ith particle. So you can see, therefore, if delta Ri is actually the displacement of the ith particle, then this delta Ri will be Ri prime, that is final position vector, minus Ri, that is initial position vector. And we have actually assumed it as epsilon. Remember, I have not used the subscript I in epsilon because I have told you that every particle suffers the same displacement epsilon, so there is no need to specify the ith particle here, because this epsilon is same for ith particle and jth particle and so on. So this delta Ri, which is equal to epsilon, will be Ri prime minus Ri. Now, as a result of this infinite Samuel translation, the Hamiltonian of the system actually gets changed. Here we should note that when there will be an infinite Samuel translation, then Hamiltonian is actually a function of only the position vectors, or you can say the space coordinates of the system, and not a function of momentum and not a function of time. So in this case, in Cartesian coordinate, this Hamiltonian may be given as h equal to this is a scalar, h of R1, R2, so on, Rf, where f actually denotes the degree of freedom of the system, and R1, R2 and so on, Rf denote the position vector of the different particles. Actually, in this case, this Hamiltonian gets changed due to this infinite Samuel displacement, and only due to change in the position vector, not due to the change in momentum or change in time. So we have to find how this Hamiltonian will get changed due to this infinite Simul change. So change in Hamiltonian after the infinite Simul displacement. If we denote this infinite Simul change in Hamiltonian by delta H, then you know as H is a function of more than one variable, so we can find this change in Hamiltonian by the rule of partial differentiation, and we will write it as del H by del R1 dot delta R1 plus del H by del R2 dot delta R2 plus so on plus del H by del RF dot delta RF. Now the expression in RHS of this equation may be written in compact form by the use of sign of summation. So you can write it in this way. This is actually equal to summation over I del H by del Ri dot delta Ri. In fact, here this I runs from 1, 2, 3, so on up to F. But we know this delta Ri in this case is same for all particles, and that is equal to epsilon. So we can write it as summation over I del H by del Ri dot epsilon. Since a scalar product is commutative, so and this epsilon has no relation with this summation, so we may write this expression as epsilon dot summation over I del H by del Ri. And let us say this is equation 1. So we have found the infinite Simul change in Hamiltonian of the system, which is actually resulted from the infinite Simul translation of the system. Now, as I have told you in this introduction, that if the space is homogeneous, then Hamiltonian of the system remains invariant. And so, as we have assumed the infinite Simul translation, so Hamiltonian of the system will not change, and in this condition we can say that this delta H will be equal to 0. So you know, in case of infinite Simul translation, H remains invariant. So this delta H will be equal to 0. Now we have seen in this equation that this delta H is equal to what? This is actually equal to epsilon dot summation over I del H by del Ri. So this will be equal to 0. You know the scalar product of two vectors is 0 when either one of the vectors is 0 or both vectors are non-zero, but the angle between the two vectors is in fact 90 degree. But here we know that this epsilon is actually an arbitrary vector, and so this may or may not be 0, but our result is 0. So definitely the second vector should be 0. So you can say as epsilon is arbitrary. We have assumed it arbitrarily. So the another vector, that is summation over I del h by del ri, this should be equal to 0. Del h by del ri, this should be equal to 0. So let us say this is equation 2. Now in Cartesian coordinate, that is in the coordinate ri, we can write the Hamilton's canonical equation, and you know what is that equation. We have already studied it. So in the coordinates, ri, Hamilton's equations are, you know this equation is what? This is pi dot is equal to minus del h by del, sorry, this is, there is a lack of space here, so I am writing it in another page. So you can see this is pi dot equal to minus del h by del ri. This is actually Hamilton's equation in Cartesian coordinates. And so let us now put this result in the above equation. And first of all, you can see if we put the sign of summation in both sides, so this will be summation over I, pi dot, here is pi dot, and that will be equal to minus summation over I del h by del ri. Now let us use this result in the previous equation. So we can write here, you can see the previous result. This is actually summation over del h by del ri equal to 0. So we can write this is actually minus summation over I pi dot equal to 0. And you know pi dot means what? It means this is time derivative of pi. So we can write it as this is d dt summation over I pi equal to 0. As there is 0 in RHS, so we have removed this minus sign here. Now we know if the time derivative of this pi, summation pi is 0, what does it mean? It means this summation pi will be equal to constant. Therefore, we conclude that summation over I pi is equal to constant. And in fact, this is principle of conservation of linear momentum. So you can see when the system suffers an infinite simultranslation, the Hamiltonian gets changed, and this small change in Hamiltonian actually resulted in conservation principle of linear momentum. So you can say that the homogeneity of space leads to the theorem of conservation of linear momentum. Now we will see the another conservation principle, which is actually conservation of angular momentum, and as we have seen, this conservation principle is resulted due to isotropy of space. And when you say isotropy of space, what does it mean? It means if the system suffers an infinitesimal rotation, then actually the Hamiltonian of the system remains invariant, although in this case Hamiltonian depends on position coordinate and the momentum both, but Hamiltonian will not change if the system suffers an infinitesimal rotation. And in fact, due to this, we say that space is isotropic, and this isotropy of space actually resulted in conservation of angular momentum. So we will see isotropy of space and conservation of angular momentum. Angular momentum. Just like in the previous case, let us consider a system of n particles in phase space. Here we consider the system is in phase space, so the coordinates will be both position coordinate and the momentum coordinate. So consider a system of particles in phase space. Remember, here our space is actually phase space, and we again consider an ith particle of the system, and the in spherical polar coordinates, actually the coordinates for that ith particle relative to some arbitrary origin is actually equal to Ri, theta I, and phi I. We consider it. These are actually the spherical polar coordinate of this ith particle in spherical polar coordinates. Now let us consider the system is given an infinitesimal rotation, and when the system will suffer an infinitesimal rotation, actually in that condition all the particles of the system will be rotated by the same amount. So let this delta phi is rotation of the system, or you can say each particle of the system, each particle of the system. Actually, when we will express this angular displacement, this rotation is actually angular displacement, in terms of the linear displacement suffered by this particle. So you know how the linear displacement is related to this angular displacement. So if you can say delta Ri is actually the translation of the ith particle. Remember here, angular displacement of all particles are same in this case, in case of rotation, but the translational displacement will be not same. In fact, it depends on the position of the particles. You can see from this figure, when this body is actually rotated, let us say this is an ith particle and this is jth particle, these particles will get rotated in this way. So you can see the angular displacement of both particles are same, but the linear displacement of both particles will not same. In fact, the ith particle suffers a small displacement and jth particle suffers larger displacement if the jth particle is at a larger distance from the axis of rotation. So here delta r is not same for all particles, hence we have specified that delta ri is the translation of the ith particle. Now this delta ri is related to this delta phi in this way, in a spherical polar coordinate. This delta ri is actually equal to ri into sine theta I into delta phi into n hat, and this result may be written as this is delta phi cross ri, delta phi cross ri. You can say this linear displacement is actually moment of the angular displacement. So this is actually equal to delta phi cross ri. So, and in this expression, this n hat is actually a unit vector perpendicular to the plane containing the vectors delta phi and ri. So in this way, we relate delta ri to delta phi. In fact, in similar manner, we can write the change in momentum coordinate of the ith particle in the light of that equation. So similarly, you can write the corresponding change in momentum of ith particle is given as delta pi, and this will be equal to delta phi cross pi. Here actually ri has been replaced by pi. So let us say this is equation. What will be the equation number? You can see we have assumed only two equations. So you can say this is equation 3 and this is equation 4. Now, as in phase space, Ri and Pi behave in fact in similar manner, and so the change in Hamiltonian of the system will depend on both of the coordinates Ri and Pi. So in phase space, you can say in phase space this H is actually equal to H of Ri Pi. I have already discussed such a change in detail in the previous section, so I am here directly writing it in compact form. Therefore, change in Hamiltonian after infinite simul rotation. Infinite simul rotation. What will be actually the change in Hamiltonian? If we write this change as delta H, you can see from here that since H is a function of two types of coordinates Ri and Pi, so we will write this as, I am directly writing it in compact form. You have already studied it several times. So this will be summation over I del H by del Ri dot delta Ri and plus summation over I del H by del Ri dot delta Pi. Now, in equation 3 and 4, we have expressed this delta Ri and delta Pi in terms of the angular displacement suffered by our system, which is delta phi. So now let us use equation 3 and 4 in this equation. So after using the equation 3 and 4, what will be our expression for delta H? This is summation over I del H by del Ri dot delta phi cross Ri. We have seen that this delta Ri is actually equal to delta phi cross Ri, and plus the second term will be summation over I del H by del Ri dot delta Pi. But you have seen that this delta Pi in equation 4 is delta phi cross Pi. So we will write it delta phi cross Pi, and let us say this is equation 5. Now we will use in this equation 5 the Hamilton's canonical equation. So according to Hamilton's canonical equations, in fact in Cartesian coordinate, first equation will be Ri dot is equal to Ri dot equal to, you know, this is del H by del Pi, and Pi dot, you know, this is actually equal to minus del H by del Ri. These are Hamilton's canonical equations. Now actually we will use these Hamilton's canonical equations in our equation number 5. In place of del H by del Ri, we will write minus delta Pi dot, and at the place of del H by this del Ri, we will write del H by del Ri, we will write actually, so there is a mistake. In fact, we should write here del H by del Pi, not del Ri. So this is del Pi, and here will be also del Pi. This is del Pi. Now use this Hamilton's equations in this equation 5. So using these in 5, what we will get actually? We will get that this delta H is equal to summation over I minus Pi dot delta phi cross Ri, and plus Ri dot, this is Ri dot delta phi cross Ri. Now you can simplify it in this manner. This is summation over I. In fact, this will be minus Ri cross Pi dot delta phi, and here will be minus Ri dot cross Ri dot let us see here. I am rewriting it. In fact, you can write this equation in this manner. So actually this is equal to minus, I have taken the minus sign common, summation over I Ri cross Pi dot and plus Ri dot cross, actually in this equation here is Pi, I have mistaken here, this is Pi. And so this will be Ri dot cross Pi, and we write dot delta phi as a common factor. So this is this much. Now the expression inside this square bracket, you can see, can be written in a particular manner, that this is minus delta phi dot. As dot product is commutative, so we can write this vector delta phi first. So this is delta phi dot, and the term inside, the expression inside this square bracket, you can see, can be written as d dt summation over I Ri cross Pi. You can check it. When we will actually differentiate this Ri cross Pi with respect to t, you will get the result which is inside the square bracket. Remember, here there is actually Pi dot. So this is the result which we have obtained after the use of Hamilton's canonical equation, and this will be actually, let us say, equation number 6. Now we know from the definition of the angular momentum of a system, so that as we know, summation over I Ri cross Pi is equal to what? This is actually equal to L, which is angular momentum of the system. This is angular momentum of the system. In fact, Ri cross Pi is angular momentum of ith particle, and when you will take the summation over I, then it will give you angular momentum of our system. And so the above equation in terms of L can be written as delta H is equal to minus delta phi dot dl by dt, and this will be equation number 7. Say this is equation number 7. Now we know that if the system actually suffers an infinitesimal rotation. Then actually, since the space is isotropic, so Hamiltonian will remain invariant after this infinitesimal rotation. And if Hamiltonian is invariant, what does it mean? It means this delta H will be actually equal to 0. So you can say if the space is isotropic, if the space is isotropic, then H means Hamiltonian of the system remains invariant under infinitesimal rotation. And as we have considered the case of infinitesimal rotation, so we can say due to this isotropicity of the space, this delta H will be actually equal to 0. And if delta H is 0, you have seen equation 7 that this delta H is actually equal to what? This is minus delta phi dot dl by dt is equal to 0. Again, we know that this delta phi is an arbitrary rotation, and so it may or may not be 0 and angle between these two vectors may or may not be 0. But since the scalar product of these two vectors is always 0, so definitely the other vector dl by dt must be 0. So you can say as this delta phi is arbitrary. So definitely this dl by dt will be 0. And you know, if dl by dt is 0, what does it imply? It implies that this L is equal to constant. And L means the angular momentum of our system. And so we have proved that the angular momentum of our system will remain conserved when the system suffers infinitesimal rotation, that is, the space is actually isotropic. In that condition, angular momentum of the system remains conserved. So you can see that isotropy of the space leads to the conservation principle of angular momentum. Now finally, we will discuss the conservation principle of energy. And as I have told you that this conservation of energy is resulted due to homogeneity of time. So homogeneity of time, which actually leads to conservation of energy. Now let us consider a system of particles where time is homogeneous. Let us consider a system of particles where time is homogeneous. In fact, when we say that time is homogeneous, it means actually the Hamiltonian of the system will not depend explicitly on time. Although Hamiltonian may depend on time, but its explicit dependence will not exist. So in this case, we will use the general expression for the Hamiltonian. So we know for an ith particle, the Hamiltonian is actually a function of the generalized coordinate qi, the generalized momentum pi, and the time t. And so if there will be a change in Hamiltonian with respect to change in time, then we can find the change in Hamiltonian with respect to time by the rule of partial differentiation. And I am here again writing the equation directly in compact form because you have used such situation in several times. So you can write what is this dH by dt. We know this will be actually summation over I del H by del qi into dqi by dt plus summation over I del H by del pi dpi, here actually this is dpi by dt and plus del H by del t into dt by dt. You can see in RHS this dqi by dt and dpi by dt may be written in dot symbol. In fact, dqi by dt can be written as qi dot and dpi by dt can be written as pi dot. And this dt by dt is actually equal to 1. So this result can be written in this manner. So dH by dt, we can write it as summation over I del H by del qi into qi dot plus summation over I del H by del pi into pi dot. And since dt is 1, so the last term is simply del H by del t. And this will be actually the equation number 8. Equation number 8. Now again here we will use Hamilton's canonical equation in general form. You cannot say this is Hamilton's equation in Cartesian coordinate, but in any coordinate. So from Hamilton's equations, we know that this qi dot is equal to what? We know this is del H by del pi and pi dot is equal to minus del H by del qa. You know it. In fact, we have already studied Hamilton's canonical equation. So now let us use these Hamilton's canonical equations in equation 8. At the place of this qi dot, we will write del H by del pi. At the place of this pi dot, we will, In fact, at the place of del H by del Qi, we will write minus Pi dot, and at the place of del H by del Pi, we will write Qi dot. So, using these in equation 8, we get what actually we will get, that this dH by dt is equal to summation over I. You can see this del H by del Qi can be written from here as minus Pi dot. So this will be minus Pi dot into Qi dot and plus summation over I, and this del H by del Pi, del H by del Pi, you can see this is actually Qi dot, and the another factor is Pi dot. So this is Pi dot into Qi dot and plus the last term del H by del T. You can see the first two terms in RHS of this equation will cancel out, and so this dH by dt is actually equal to del H by del T, del H by del T. Now, as I have told you earlier that the Hamiltonian of the system does not depend on time explicitly in case of the homogeneity of time. So, as or you can say if, not as, if the time is homogeneous, time is homogeneous, then H does not depend explicitly on T, and so we can write this del H by del T equal to 0. And you can see from the above equation 9 that if del H by del T is 0, then actually we can write dH by dt equal to 0, because del H by del T is equal to in fact dH by dt. So we can write it dH by dt, and this equal to 0. And if dH by dt is 0, what does it refers? Actually it refers that H is equal to constant. And you know, particularly in case of conservative system, this H is equal to what? This is actually equal to T plus V, and that will be constant. And you know this T plus V actually represents the total energy. So this total energy is constant, and but in case of conservative system, you know the total energy, that is the sum of the kinetic and potential energy, actually remains constant if the system is conservative. So you can see here T is actually kinetic energy, V is potential energy, and Hamiltonian for a conservative system is equal to T plus V, and that represents the total energy of our system. And you have seen that this total energy remains constant, but when? Only when the time is homogeneous. So you can see the homogeneity of time leads to the conservation of total energy. So homogeneity of time leads energy conservation. Energy conservation. So in this way we have seen how the symmetry actually leads to the different conservation principles. We have discussed only three conservation principles, that is conservation of linear momentum, angular momentum and total energy here, because our concern in classical mechanics is for these three conservation principles. But as I have told you in the introductory lecture, that all the conservation principles are resulted due to the symmetry of our nature.